It was 1996, September 13th, and it was on a Friday. I was a sophomore at Grant High School. The year was just starting in the school year when a news clip very similar to this came on.
Near fatal shooting, but he couldn't survive a second. Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25. Here's NBC's Stan Bernard.
You know they got me trapped in this prison of seclusion.
Tupac Shakur rode to fame and riches on his often violent vision of life in the inner city. That vision turned out to be prophetic. His own death from multiple gunshot wounds. And his devoted fans who believed his rap litany mirrored their lives are mourning.
I like rappers who are gonna say what they have to say. You know, I really like that. He didn't hold nothing back, he didn't bite his tongue, but like I said, Tupac took things a little bit too far, and that could be the reason why he is where he is right now.
For many, Shakur's reputation as a gifted rap artist was more important than his history, his rap sheet. When he was shot in this car in Las Vegas, he was out on bail while appealing a 4.5-year sentence for sexual assault. And he had been shot before when someone, he said, tried to rob him. But Shakur, who was also an actor, said in a recent interview, the harsh realities of his life made him different from other performers.
No one alive, I think, with sanity has as much life experience to draw from. And I think that's the only thing that breaks me apart from the pack.
And his early death underlines another terrible reality, the early mortality of black men.
A lot of us are still trying to figure out who we are, and when you have to try to figure out who you are inside of a public limelight the way he did, it's very, very difficult.
It seems the rain will never let up. I try to keep my head up and still keep from getting wetter.
Tupac Shakur, perhaps personified by the words "thug life" tattooed on his stomach, said his success was due to his life and his career being so closely intertwined.
It ain't no hope for the future.
Stan Bernard, NBC News, New York.
Tupac Shakur had died. Literally, there was a chick named Courtney. She had some twins that were her cousin, and you can just hear her crying and crying and crying. Other young ladies in the room were crying and crying and crying because this rap icon at 25 years old had been battling for his life for just 6 days. And now he's passed away. And for many people, folks were trying to keep him alive. They were saying that he escaped to Cuba like his relatives in the Shakur family. They were saying that he was like Machiavelli. There have been so many myths and legends of Tupac Shakur trying to keep him alive. And many people wanted to believe that Tupac Shakur was still alive, that he kind of faked his death. But many of us knew that he was indeed dead. And for somebody like me, I've been knowing for a long time that Tupac died. Rewind, Nima! I was born in Linwood, California in 1981 at St. Francis Hospital. And from there, I lived in Compton and Watts. And for those of you who know about Compton, it's a very, very interesting city, and it was an interesting city in the 80s. But for some of my family members, especially my grandmother's sister's kids and things like that, our family lived on the south side of Compton. And there were two gangs that our family was and still is involved with: the South Side Atlantic Drive Crips and the South Side Compton Crips. Now, for those people who don't really understand, the South Side Compton Crips and Atlantic Drive Crips are like one big gang under the South Side umbrella. So when Tupac got killed, we already had an idea a long time ago who was implicated and who may have done it. Even though I wasn't there, I was living in Sacramento at the time, but I always heard one name ringing: William Jones. Not because of that, but because of people who I know in my family that happened to be in Las Vegas at that time during the Tyson fight in which Tupac was killed. But that's something that should have never really been talked about. The streets kind of talked about it. And Orlando Anderson, who looked just like Tupac, was killed in another altercation where, at a gas station someplace, and he shot the person and they shot him. But a person that seemed to be having a lot to say about this is Mr. Keffe Davis, who's been going around the internet, around everywhere since 2009, talking about his implication with this shooting. Duane Keffe D Davis was also a part of the Southside Crips. I've never met him. I didn't know him, but people in my family know him. And for him, as a member of the Southside Crips, he was there. His mistake was saying, I gave the gun to Orlando Anderson that killed Tupac. And he was going around saying this stuff for a long time until this happened.
I also want to bring in Greg Kading. He is a former Los Angeles police detective known for his decade-long work on a multi-agency task force investigating the murders of Tupac and Biggie Smalls. Greg, thank you so much for being here. You know, I keep wondering if Suge Knight knows something or saw something. Has he been able to be helpful in this investigation at all? Will he make an appearance at any trial as a witness?
No, Suge's not going to step forward and provide any information. He's never been helpful. He's known all along who was responsible for shooting into the car with Tupac and him. He's always known. He looked directly at Keffe D. They locked eyes. He always knew who the assailants were, and he's never done anything to try to solve that. So I don't think we can expect him to now.
Well, given the fact that Keffe D, wrote this book 5 years ago and implicated himself, talked about procuring the gun, handing it to the back seat. I mean, that almost sounded to me like it was enough for a prosecutor. I'm sort of surprised it wasn't enough. What do you think, or what do you know they found when they executed that warrant that led 2 months later to where we are today with an arrest?
Well, after all this time, it's very unlikely that they found anything that had much investigative value. The strength of this indictment, the strength of this arrest, and the strength of this prosecution lies solely on the confessions that Keffe D has made since 2009. He's just reiterated over and over his involvement, and all of that has been substantiated. So now he's talked himself straight into prison.
Now, firstly, I'm not in the streets. And the one thing that I do like about Suge Knight, even though I love Tupac, Suge Knight knew who killed Tupac, but he never talked. Want to know why he never talked? Because Suge Knight was a part of that lifestyle. Now, some people will say it's debatable if Suge Knight was from Mob Hood or not, but he knew who killed Tupac, and who knows if he wanted to have some revenge. And I do know that there was a lot of killings going around after Tupac got killed in Compton, especially from retaliation from Mob Hood towards other people. It was real funky at that time. I wasn't living in LA in 1996. I was living in LA in 1993-94 at Compton. I was going to school at Benjamin O. Davis Middle School. But now this other stuff I'm not sure about. But the thing is, Keffe Davis, this is his cousin. Orlando Anderson is his cousin. And Orlando Anderson is also, friends to some of my relatives who were in the same gang. But it seems like to me that Keffe D. Davis had no real reason to go ahead and tell what happened. A lot of people already knew what happened. They know who killed Tupac. They know who shot Tupac. But why Keffe D. Davis decided to go out there and to snitch on his own cousin, which it was, I just don't get it. And now look at where it has gotten you. Even though you were not the shooter who killed Tupac, you were there in the car. You handed the gun that killed Tupac. And it's just like, what kind of person do you expect to be? Like you snitched on your person, you're in your 50s or 60s by now, and then now your whole family faces this sort of retaliation for something that you admitted that you were a part of. And I have no idea why you thought you could do this and never be charged with a crime. I mean, you've only killed the greatest rapper to many people that ever existed, and nothing should happen to you. But I guess, hey, I killed a black person. I was there. I handed the gun as a black person. So, hey, it doesn't really matter because, Tupac is black. Now, if it had been anybody white and he had said that, he'd already be in jail. But because it's Tupac and it's his own self-confession, that's it. Now, they've went into his house and raided his house. And from what I understand, it's not a whole lot of evidence that might have linked them there because it's been so long, but it's been his own confession. And so here's what I want to say as a greater measure of what I'm talking about today. Guys, if you don't want to be in the streets, don't be in the streets. If you're in the streets and you got to go back out and start talking about what happened in the streets just to get clout as you get older, then you had no business being in the streets because you're still a snitch. Even though Orlando Anderson is dead, it's still snitching. So if you can't do that if you can't respect him like that, and again, it's wrong to kill Tupac. I get it, and I understand why it happened. I understand that, you know, Tupac probably shouldn't have been, you know, fighting this guy because the guy had did something to another death row member in the mall. You know what I mean? And took the guy's chain. I get all that. But if you can't be in the streets, Keefe, don't talk about it. Now you got to do the time. All right? Now you got to do the time. And you might not get no love in prison. You ain't Tory Lanez, bro. Somebody gonna have something to say about what you did, because you don't know who still loved Tupac, but you about to find out. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe to the bell. We're out.